Yo, what is up, everybody? Soresco back again with another story from the collection Macabre Minds, written by Auntie Heart. Remember to check out the links in the description, show love to the author, like, comment, and subscribe. Story 3, Bloodbath. I hear that there is a place where God watches over you and your children always listen. I'll eat my own shit before I admit a place like that exists. Hell, on the other hand, certainly has a setting of its own. I know that for a fact. I moved my family out to a remote country village a few years ago. My 2 children, both boys, were young, hard-headed, and warranted suicide prevention 24/7 with their mischievous antics. I deliberately bought a fixer-upper and a few cows and goats, for I figured it would teach the whining sons the importance of responsibility. I remember their continuous complaints and firm declarations of my abusive parenting style. But while my sons contemplated the degree of my sadism, I knew I was raising them right. They loved their animals, and they loved the home. I wish it could have stayed that way forever, though. I had the peculiar fortune of calling the Legend family my neighbors. They seemed to have stepped out a rendition of American Gothic, had the couple had been younger and shown with 2 doll-faced children. Anyways, Tom Legend was a large man in height, and his rippling muscles on his right arm always strove to emasculate me. However, his non-existent left arm promised salvation for my crippled dignity, even though it was nauseating how it seemed to swing back and forth automatically like the chime on a grandfather clock. It was like it was counting down the seconds till his death. I didn't know the wife's name, but she was thin, cold woman with lips stretched in a peculiar and perpetual scowl. She spoke with the icy words of a strict Christian mother to her children, and the only time she spoke to me was when she mentioned my own children looked homeless. In my defense, my boys worked, and their maturity was measured with the amount of dirt and sweat collected in their orifices. I couldn't change the fact that the wife dressed her kids up like porcelain dolls, perfect girls with perfect golden locks and white dresses. The youngest, just a baby, still fussed with the lace, but the oldest girl, Emily, skipped in front of our house and leaned so her skirt was caught in the wind. She was only 5, but she still tried to catch the eyes of my bemused boys. I told them they could do better. They silently agreed. The rural country setting always seemed to warrant gossip. I was too close to the Legend family just by living next to them. That could be why Emily came skipping up to me one day, face glowing like the rising sun. She grabbed my hand and begged me to my feet from my comfortable position on the porch swing, and I put down my beer with sparking annoyance as she dragged me towards her house. Mr. Jordan, you've got to come see what Daddy bought me. She was alight with joy as she babbled about her love of her father and her more pronounced love of her new gift. I figured she took me because my boys were at school, so I began to lament on the loneliness of the poor child and how I was somehow cured. Their home was a large, typical country home. White painted wood crackled with termites, seeming to age by the minute. Windows remained forever plastered with dust, promising me that I was never a pry to the lives of those who lived within. The little girl led me by my hand to the back of the house, which was even more dilapidated than the front, and she opened her arms wide in front of a collapsing shed. "Ta-da!" she exclaimed, and she ran into the open barn and wrapped her lithe arms around a grunting pig. Oh, wow. At least she wasn't fooled by the sarcasm. I was an expert since I raised 2 boys fascinated with dead bugs and dirt. "Her name is Alice. Mama just read me Alice in Wonderland. Have you read it, Mr. Jordan?" The way she said it was so condescending that I bobbed my head furiously. Of course I read it. I wasn't illiterate, despite the few words I ever said. She was a damn ripoff if you ask me. Sorry? I paid a damn fortune for that pig. Em's been begging and crying for one for months. But that bitch is pregnant. Pregnant. Now what am I gonna do with piglets, huh? He looked at his daughter accusingly, and she just wrapped her arms tighter around her pig. "We're gonna love him, of course. Or you could have extra bacon." I was only halfway sarcastic with that comment, but Tom clapped me on the back with one good hand. I think I still have a bruise from it. "Now that's an idea." "You like bacon, right, Emily?" "Daddy, you wouldn't do that." Of course, I was just kidding." Sensing the conversation was taking a rather nasty, dishonest turn, I took a few steps back to leave. When Emily grunted a goodbye to me, Tom looked at me in the eyes and took my hand in a rough embrace for a brief second. He asked, "You have daughters, Jordan?" "No, just 2 boys." "Well, I guess you're lucky. It's easier not to spoil boys." And with that, I fled back to my house and immediately set my frazzled and grumpy son to work. I saw the little girl continuously after that. She spent her days playing in her front lawn with her new pet, giggling and laughing, lighting up the world like only a little cute child can. Her bell chime laughter caused my sons to stare and admit annoyance, but I told them that the least of their worries, I chased them off with a shovel. Besides, didn't they notice the pig growing plumpier by the day? Didn't they see Tom sitting on his front porch, cigarette smoke blooming in front of him, an awful seeming scowl on his face? I wondered as to why he looked so furious, but I found my answer late one October night. I was woken by a loud thud and a curse. Getting out of bed with a blasphemous word of my own, I peeked out my window. The darkness only partially concealed a large, one-armed figure standing at the legend's front yard. A long, thin pole was held in Tom's one overly large hand, and I realized that the moon's light revealed it to be an axe. A sack lay in front of him on an old tree stump, and he methodically set about bringing the axe down to it. Thud, thud, thud. "Jesus Christ, go to bed, you weirdo," I grumbled, and I left him to his shady business crawl back to my chilling bed. Sleep was definitely fleeting that night, for I was again awoken as the first rays of sunshine began to paint my bedroom walls by a piercing shriek. My youngest boy even came into my room, rubbing sleep from his eyes, the cocky smile plastered on his face. "Look, Dad, Emily's having a meltdown." I threw a pillow at my son, but I abandoned my comfort all the same. I glanced out my window yet again, and I was almost revolted by what I saw. Emily was screaming and sobbing, her despair slicing through the morning like a reaper's sickle. She was hitting her father, who was trying desperately to restrain her with one arm. He was like a broken windmill, waving her arms as she drove her tiny fist to Tom's stomach. Where's Alice's babies? Where are the babies? Where are my pigs?" Tom seemed to be yelling nonsensically back at her, and I noticed he kept glancing at the axe that lay right behind his daughter. "Em, it's okay. They're with God now." Wow, and I thought there was something wrong with my family, my son said as he cupped his hands to the window. I threw a shoe at him, and then he left with a grunt and a jab at my lack of humor. After that, all I saw of the Legend family were strained interactions. Emily sat mostly in front of her house with Alice, hugging and cooing at the pig. A frown set deep in her young face. When her father spoke to her, she answered with such terseness that he would often wave his hand and point to what I assumed was her bedroom. My family and I just watched from our own little corner of the world. There was something about an axe and missing piglets that I didn't want my sons to have any part in. Even though they found their oddness kind of cool, I still tried to distance them from the darkness that seemed to envelop my neighbor's house. I don't think I succeeded. Months after that encounter, as the weather began to chill, Tom approached my house late into the day. I was just beginning to doze to the sound of my son's video games when I heard the rasping on the door like a reaper to come claim my life. With a groan, I rose to find them standing on my doorstep. One arm swaying slowly in the cold wind, complete with a black hoodie. "Jordan?" He said it so civilly that I think I stared at him for a few minutes before replying, "Tom?" He fiddled with his left sleeve and said, I'm sorry to bother you this late at night, but I was wondering if you can help me with something." I have work tomorrow. Can't this wait?" "No, it cannot. Come on." As I followed him into the darkening sky, casting shades of crimson, he explained cryptically, "See, Em thinks it's funny to let her pig wander around unsupervised. She knows it pisses me off, so she just lets it run free. Well, pig's pregnant again. Just had the piglets, actually. You have a pig, don't you, Jordan?" I pursed my lips. So it was the blame game he wanted to play. I wanted to tell him where to shove it, but what came out was, "Yes, I do." And it's male? My boys had bothered me for a male pig for months. I had promised to take care of him, and I believed them after all that hard work they pulled on the farm. I mean, they were good boys. So I said, yes it is. Tom's accusatory glare raised bumps on my neck. His one arm swung as though to hit me in the face, but instead it rested on my shoulders, and he said, well, we're in this together. I cringed at the thought of being connected at all to the Legend family, but I supposed it was the inevitable horror that stemmed from being neighbors. As much distance as I put myself between the family, it did not change the fact that we lived just next door to each other. I cussed out loud, and Tom glanced at me. Shit is right, Jordan. Life is shit. Tom dragged me by my shoulders across the cracked street towards his dilapidated home. In the back of my mind, I had an inkling of understanding, especially when he led me around the house. But something, call it sanity, blocked the truth from unfolding. A tree stump swam into view, and next to it sat a burlap sack that squirmed and squealed. In front of it rested a bloodied hatchet. You first, Tom said, shoving me forward roughly with his one arm. I shook my head like a rag doll, and my body stiffened like a car wreck victim when he handed me the hatchet. You owe me. These are your responsibilities just as much as they are mine. You don't know that. Really? Did these piglets come from a fairy or a unicorn, Jordan? Look, I'm not fucking doing this. Ugh, you're more of a coward than I thought. Steam began to rise from my face, but it was quickly chilled as Tom brought the hatchet down on the burlap sack. It made a sickening thwob sound, followed by the screams of the dying. I took a few steps back, my body a doll again. The hatchet sliced through the sack 6 more times. He finally threw it to me, whacking me in the knee. I cursed as I felt a bruise blossoming. And that's how it's done. That is called life, and life is shit, Tom said. I think I ran from Legend's backyard and did not look back, not even when I reached the minimal safety of my own house. I did not sleep that night, but the day broke with the crying of a little girl and my son's footsteps as they ran into my room to peek out my overlooking window. Damn, you two are so noisy. But my half-hearted tone caused them to completely ignore me. So I rose from my bed with a groan and went to join my children at the window. Alice, the piglets, where are they? Where are they? Alice was punching her father again, and I noticed she began to go for his half arm. He recoiled fiercely when she knocked her chubby fist to his closed wound. Phantom pains, I suppose. Tom's reply was exactly the same. Irrational. He just said they're with God now. A storm picked up the following week. The darkest of clouds rolled in, and an angry winds ripped through the wood on both my house and the Legends. The unforgiving rain, icy like a serial killer's heart, sliced through my skin and I went outside to repair the damages. I saw Tom through the storm attempting to do the same thing, struggling as he lifted fallen beams with his one arm. When the brutality of the heavens finally subsided a little, leaving the world with just a slight drizzle, I walked over to my neighbor's house with a six-pack. Tom answered the door when I knocked and started with, "Some storm, huh?" I held the pack of beer up as a sign of friendliness, and Tom took it with a spectacled scowl. Yeah. Damn winds nearly tore my house apart. Yep, that's why I brought beer. The interior of the Legends house was about the same as the outside. Moth-eaten furniture decorated a cracking wooden floor, and peeling brown paint covered the walls, hidden by a few pictures of the little Legend girls. Emily came bouncing up to me, absolutely aglow with joy. I wondered at the misplaced happiness, and the small child exclaimed, "Hiya, Mr. Jordan. So good to see you." She gave me an awkward hug, which I returned with hesitation. Tom frowned on his daughter and said, "Supposed to be taking a bath with your sister, Em." The girl giggled, but she oddly agreed with her father and ran off. That's odd. My boys hate baths. Yeah, she's an odd child. He gestured for me to sit at the couch held together with duct tape. I graciously sat down, and we silently cracked through the beers. For a few moments, the quiet was reassuring. The rain had finally stopped, and the silence hung thick like a blanket. For those few seconds, I finally felt at ease around Tom, who was just chugging his beer and smiling tentatively. I mean, we were neighbors after all. We were in this life together. The calm was disturbed suddenly by a loud scream, followed by a crashing noise. I jumped, but Tom just calmly rose to his feet. Damn children, the hell are they doing? I followed Tom across the living room towards a shut door next to the hallway. He opened it and immediately jumped back, holding his one good hand to his open mouth. No. My stomach emptied itself when I saw the scene. The bath water was turned a nasty shade of crimson, and red painted the white pristine bathroom walls. Floating in the bathtub were severed limbs of a tiny child. Standing in front of the bathtub, with a hatchet at her feet, was Emily, smiling brightly, covered in blood. "Don't worry, Daddy. Sissy's with God now." And that, ladies and gentlemen,